What's up guys, Diego here from ProNDC. Welcome to another ESO video. In today's video I want to talk about the changes to Glyphs for the Wolfhunter DLC. I will cover tank, healer, Magicka and stamina DPS. I will also talk a little bit about traits and what options you have. However, I did not do enough testing to basically tell you what will be best in slot. I will have to do more testings inside of a trial. I do not want to purely rely on target skeleton tests on PTS to make my decisions so far. Anyway, so how do glyphs currently work? Basically, if you have AoE weapon abilities, for example, the blockade and endless hail, they will proc the glyph on your bar that you are currently on, which means before Wolfhunter, if you put down a blockade and you swap your bar, the glyph on the bar that you swap to will be activated through these abilities. With Wolfhunter, they changed that. Basically what they said in patch notes, they gave an example. If you used snipe on your bow bar and you have, for example, a poison glyph, and then you have your, for example, 2H or dual wield on the other bar, let's say 2H with a disease glyph, the snipe will activate the poison glyph because snipe was casted on the bow bar which had the poison glyph, even if you bar swapped. What this means is basically that skills like hail and blockade, they activate the glyph from the bar they were casted on. So up until now, on the front bar, tanks were using infused with a crusher damage enchantment. No, with a crushing enchantment. And they put weakening on the back bar most of the time. It depended a little bit on the content you're playing. Sometimes they were playing with sword and board on both bars. Sometimes they play sword and board and destruction stuff on the back bar. But what you have to do now is swap the glyphs. So Crusher goes to the back bar if you play a lightning staff or a destruction staff in general, and then Weakening goes to the front bar. If you play double sword and board, keep Crusher on the front bar so you do not have to bar swap every time to actually activate it. That will be a pain in the ass. So if you play double sword and board, or if you are in a situation where you have to play double sword and board, keep Crusher on the front bar, keep Weakening on the back bar. If you play with the destruction stuff on the back bar, which you can do in most content, go with Crusher on the back bar. Because until Wolfhunter, the blockade casted on the back bar was able to activate the crushing enchantment on the front bar. Now if you just like swap the glyphs, it will look like this. You can see Crusher to the right of my character. It will just reapply itself as long as the blockade is down. And if I light attack, Weakening will proc. But it also procs, of course, if I use weapon abilities. And that's how it works. You can play any dungeon like this and you will have really good Crusher uptimes, especially combined with Torix Pact. So I currently have like Alcrush Torix Pact to have like a full debuff set, and that's really, it's fine for dungeons. Yeah, but like I said, if you are in a situation where you have to play double sword and board all the time, you want to have Crusher on the front bar to be able to activate it the whole time on cooldown with your weapon abilities or your light attacks. And what that basically means is that you need to get a second or third set of sword and board infused, and then put the glyphs on that, like, so you can adjust it to all situations. Cool thing is, it doesn't just work with blockade, it can also work with the bow. I don't have a infused bow right now here on this character, but basically if you swap the bow, you can see it will still apply Crusher. Not on cooldown because it's not infused, but will still apply it, which is really nice. So there are situations, for example in Halls of Verification, where you I don't know, can put a bow on the bar to get some extra DPS, or if you want to go for a realistic third platform, you can VMOL hard mode. You can actually use an infused bow with a crusher glyph on the back bar and use that to have good crusher uptimes. But that's basically it for the tank. Let's hop onto the healer. So I'm on the healer now, and before I start, one thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the tank, that the glyphs that get activated by blockade and hail and stuff, the only ones that work with it are the ones that actually harm your opponent. Which means if they do damage, for example, like shock, flame, disease, poison, or stamina, magicka, or HP absorption glyphs, or debuff the opponent. So, example, crusher or weakening, etc. Those are the ones that work. If you have a berserker glyph, for example, this one here, this does not work. So putting a berserker glyph on your lightning staff and infused and bar swapping, that won't reactivate the berserker glyph. Doesn't work that way. Only the ones that actually harm your opponent or your target. So what did healers do until now? The berserker glyph, not a lot of people actually play that on a healer. I think sometimes they just swap it around. Go with an absorption glyph or go with crusher, weakening, etc. I personally do not like to play with crusher or weakening if the tanks are running towards pack, because it will just override it and basically, yeah, give the team less DPS because they need more penetration then. So that's not good. So I just keep the berserker glyph on the main bar for myself, because it only activates off of my light attacks on the healer anyway. And on the off bar, I used, up until now, I used a charged staff with a shock damage enchantment. However, as you know, putting a blockade down now will actually reapply the shock damage once the cooldown runs out, as long as your blockade is up. So I did some tests and compared it to another Lorime lightning staff with infused enchantment, and I think I saved them. Did I save those two? Yeah. So this was here with Infuse. I actually forgot to put Drain on it at the start, otherwise DPS would have been a little bit higher. But I only got 6 minor vulnerability procs in about a minute fight. So 31% uptime. Compared to the charge staff, which basically almost did the same DPS, but I had Drain on it, so Infuse will give you more DPS. I had 7 procs. Why is that important? So a charge staff has gives you 220% more chance to apply a status effect. A shock damage in general can concuss the enemy. And concussion has the positive effect of applying minor vulnerability. For the people that don't know what this means is, you can see it here in the 5-piece bonus. Minor vulnerability, 10 seconds, if you play with Infallible Ether, increasing the damage taken by 8%. If you apply minor vulnerability with shock damage in general, it will only last 4 seconds. So that's really, really important to know. So shock glyphs have a 20% chance to proc it. If you are on the destruction staff bar, you have twice the chances, and if you use charge, you have 220% more chance to actually apply the status effect. However, the shock damage glyph has a higher cooldown compared to infused, and you will not activate or like apply the status effect activate the glyph that much. So minor vulnerability, I did some more testing in the past. It was about the same. The thing is, once you swap bars, charge becomes useless. The only weapon trait that actually affects glyphs after the bar swap is Infuse, because they reduce the cooldown. So charge becomes useless once you go to your restoration staff. But in these tests, you can see I threw shards, I put down ritual, and drain and stuff. So you stay longer on that bar. Yeah, and then you keep on healing. Yeah, and then you put down your stuff again. And then you have some more procs on front bar and some higher chance to actually apply the status effect. Is that enough to drop Infallible Ether? I don't think so if you just do it with one healer. Of course, it won't be the case. Even with 2 healers, it might be a little bit too low. So it depends on your team. If you have several Magicka DPS running a shock glyph on their main bar or off bar, because that's actually an option, I will get to that in a second when I talk about Magicka DPS, then you can drop Infallible Ether probably. Yeah, that's a big question. We will need to do some more testing in the future and see if it actually works. The big pro of Infal is that you can just apply it to any target. So if there's multiple targets, you can just like go do a not fully charged heavy attack. So like the first damage tick will apply the minor vulnerability and just like apply to multiple targets at the same time. And with the shock glyph, there's still just a chance to apply it. So Infallible Ether will probably still be used in certain fights, but you will be able to drop it. But like I said, the future, like we have to do some more testing in the future to see what's actually good. Now the question is, do you want to play charged or infused? So infused will give you more procs, as you can see, like right here. So they had 14 with charged, and we had 24 with infused, and they're even higher, like 6k here and 5k here, max tick. So infused will give you more DPS, and there are situations, for example, for the Daedric bosses like Rakat, like Rakotu, the Atros in the Aetherian Archive, where you might want to use a prismatic glyph on the front bar, put down blockade to get more DPS. There are quite a few teams that actually play with the Sword Healer now because they do more DPS and provide more synergies and other buffs to the group, so you do not have to bring a Sorg, which is pretty nice. And they also do quite nice DPS, so like it can go up to like 12, 14, 15k single target DPS, which is of course not bad, especially in certain fights where you want to push DPS so far that you do not have to play certain mechanics or can avoid certain mechanics. That's really nice to push DPS a bit further. So if you actually want to push it to the maximum, Infuse will probably be better because you can just like put a prismatic glyph on there for certain fights. But it's still up to you. You do not have to change anything about the healer as of right now from the tests that I've done. That's it for the healer. Let's go to Magicka DPS. So we're on the Magicka DPS now. So question is, did something change? And the answer is yes, it did. Same as for the tank, what you have to do now is basically swap the glyphs. So you want to have a flame damage glyph on your infused Maelstrom Inferno staff now, and then put another glyph on the front bar. And I did some tests, and it depends a little bit on the situation. You have multiple options. You can put a Berserker glyph, like increasing your weapon spell damage for 5 seconds on the front bar. You will have really good uptimes of like 70-80% plus if you have it on the front bar. But you can also run stuff like I said, a shock damage glyph, which will increase the minor vulnerability uptime. So if like have like two or three Magicka DDs also running that glyph, in addition to the healers, your minor vulnerability should be fine if you have like just single bosses. In other fights, you might want to actually still use Infallible Ether. But like I said, Berserker glyph is also an option. The results are really close. I still need to do some more testing because I do not want to trust the crit luck 3 mil solo test just for that, and minor vulnerability uptime is a little bit yeah, it's not very consistent. So what I want to do is get a healer, give him Infell Beather, and then he or she just applies it to the skeleton, and I will just compare the Shock Glyph to the Berserker Glyph. The Berserker Glyph, of course, will give you more AoE DPS, while the Shock Glyph will probably be a little bit stronger in terms of single target. However, like I said, I will do some more testing. What you can also do if you have some sustain issues, for example on the Sork, maybe even on the Warden, the Magicka DK and stuff like that, is go with a Magicka Absorb Glyph. That's also really nice. So Magicka Absorb Glyph will give you back Magicka, even more with Infused, which is really cool, and have a relatively low cooldown. If you really want to make the most of this glyph, you want to put it in the back bar, because, as I said, the blockade will activate the glyph on cooldown as long as the blockade is up. But you're probably better off putting it on the front bar, because you still want to have the glyph that deals the most damage on your back bar as a DPS, or on the Maelstrom staff. That being said, you need 2 Maelstrom Inferno staves. That might be a little bit of an issue. Like, people will be a bit annoyed by that, because they just like got lucky to actually get 1, but you need a second one now. And the reason for that is the prismatic glyph. So if you encounter Rakad, if you encounter Rakotu, the Lightning Storm Metro, the Foundation Stone Metro, you need those prismatic glyphs on your Maelstrom staff. Like, just putting it on the front bar will probably give you less procs on the prismatic glyph, and to make really to get the most of it, you have to put it on the back bar and basically go either with Fire on the front or Berserker on the front. Like, having prismatic on the back and Berserker on the front will be quite similar to what you had until Somerset patch, just that the prismatic glyph will proc more often. That's the difference, or basically like the whole difference here. Other than that, not like a lot of changes, but the good thing about the Magicka Absorb Glyph is, combined with Infused, it was actually giving me such good sustain that I was able to drop the Clockwork Citrus Fillet on some classes, and you have better sustain in trials anyway, so this glyph was really good. And I'm still not sure if it's actually worth it, because you of course drop stuff like, for example, a Berserker glyph, or you drop a flame damage glyph for it, I don't know, and it will result in a little bit of a DPS loss. However, if you do not have to do like any heavy attacks at all, you will maybe even gain that back. And in addition to that, you will have more Magicka and more HP, because you can then go to max food. Combined with Clockwork Citrus Fillet or with Witch Mother's Potent Brew, this will basically give you unlimited sustain on all mag classes. Like, running out of Magicka with an Absorb Glyph and Recovery Food, I don't know if it actually is possible. Maybe if you just like overcast all your AoEs and stuff all the time. But that's pretty much it for Magicka DPS. Let's hop onto Stamina DPS. So we're on the Stam DPS now. The question is, what did change? Well, you basically had to do the same changes like on tank and Magicka DPS. You put the glyph that deals the most damage on the back bar. And so we have an Infused bow with a poison damage glyph now. But also the same as for Magicka DPS, you might want to have a second Infused bow with a prismatic glyph on the back bar. So basically, next patch, Staminas will be able to get more out of the prismatic glyph if they keep their Endless Hail up all the time. And we put a disease glyph on the Nirnhound Dual on the front bar. If you didn't know it, the Infused bug got fixed. So up until the Wolfhunter release, Infused on the offhand or Infused on either hand reduced the cooldown of the other hand. So we have an Infused dagger with a berserker glyph on the offhand, and this infused up until Wolfhunter was able to reduce the cooldown of the, in this case, disease glyph. With Wolfhunter that got fixed, and then again also glyphs got changed, like I said, and so we have infused poison back here, and I decided to go with the disease damage on the front here. People will probably ask me, like, what's the best trade combination now? I will personally keep Nern plus infused. It gave me the most consistent results, and I tried different trade combinations. I tried infuse plus precise. I tried Nern infused. I tried triple infused, and they were all really close. Like, there's not like a really big difference. So if you do not have like transmute crystals right now to actually transmute everything you have, you can just still keep the old trade combination of Nern plus infused. The only thing that you need to have now is a Maelstrom Bow infused on the back bar. Actually 2 of them. So that's what about to be like the big change for stam and DPS. However, of course, if you have a prismatic damage glyph on the back bar, you want to have a poison glyph on the front bar instead of disease. Like, the tooltip will be the same if they're both infused. However, poison will give you a damage over time effect, and disease will just reduce the healing. So poison is a little bit more DPS compared to disease, but if you use Nirnhound and won't proc a lot, so if you do not have like a third dagger in Nirnhound, or like a second Nirnhound dagger and with a poison glyph, it's not that much of a big deal. I can just basically show it to you here. Swap bars. You will see, like, you can see it on the target that my poison glyph procs a bit, and you can see the dot. It's poisoned. Okay, ran out. Poison still does dot damage. Let's wait until the fight is over. Then I can show it to you in combat metrics. So you can see poisoned, stealth effect, dealt damage 6 times, so it's a dot of 1.5k. That's actually quite a bit, and 5 procs off of my poison glyph, and hail was down about 10 seconds. So yeah, that's basically how it works. And you can see, like, the poison weapon damage, I didn't have any debuffs on it or any additional stuff. It will deal a ton of damage. The good thing about this change is you do not have to use actual poisons on the back bar, just the poison glyph, which will save you a lot of money or time for farming the materials, and that's pretty cool. The other thing was that people were fighting over who gets to use the CP 150 double dot poisons, because they do not stack. So people had to use different poisons to not end up losing DPS compared to a glyph. And that's really nice, because you do not have these issues anymore, and then people just will be able to use just the glyph on the back bar, and then they're good to go. That's really cool. But that's pretty much it for the changes for Wolfhunter, for glyphs and a bit of traits for tanks, healers, stam, and Magicka Dps. If you have any further questions, if anything is unclear, just ask me in the comment section. I'd be happy to answer all your questions. And if you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button, and also sub to this channel if you do not want to miss any more ESO content. I hope you tune in next time too. Until then, bye bye.